What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. There seems to be a confusion about Microsoft's business plan compared to Sony's business plan. Whenever Microsoft does something or doesn't do anything, they're always judged in the light of Sony's business approach, when Microsoft has almost always said that they want to take this approach that is antithetical. They didn't say that they didn't say the way I'm saying it, but I'll show you how they've said it that basically insinuates exactly what they mean. They are taking an approach that is antithetical to exactly what Sony is doing. Now, what are they doing and where is this whole thing coming from? I mentioned on my Twitter that, Phil Spencer made this particular comment about, there's just no world where, Starfield's going to be 11 out of 10 and people are going to start selling their consoles. And he's not lying. He's correct. He's saying it. Why? Because the console generation that really did solidify where people were going to, keep their gaming was the last console generation. And Xbox lost that generation. And they see that there's just no path forward if they want to continue with the exclusivity war or exclusivity pathway that Sony has established. So what are they doing? They're trying to subvert it by going the exact opposite and providing value for their gamers. Basically going with these three words: availability of games. They want gamers everywhere to be able to play games all, wherever it is that they are. Even to the point where Okami Games on Twitter joked that Microsoft has signed an exclusivity deal to provide Call of Duty to Texas Instruments, the calculator and, industrial instrument production company. Phil Spencer reacted to that and he laughed because that's exactly what they're doing. They're going in hard on it. It doesn't matter whether they acquire Activision or not. This is the direction they're going. And by the way, if they do not acquire Activision, they're going to be sitting on about $68 billion to spend. You better bet that they're going to buy something, and they're going to buy something nice and shiny, and they're going to put it on Game Pass. So all these people that are over here running all over the place, pay close attention. Phil Spencer was hired because they knew he is competent to do the job. Those of you that keep yelling and whining about his job, you didn't get hired. Put your application in. Maybe you can change the industry. I can't stand armchair CEOs of Xbox. Y'all need to get somebody out there that's going to get the job done, or you guys need to basically learn exactly what's going on and factor in all of the facts. Why do people love not using facts in a way that they argue? I cannot comprehend it, but I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to calm down. I have no fight in this game. I play on PC. I don't care if Xbox or Microsoft or Sony drops I have both consoles. If I want to play a game there, I go play it. But here's what's going on. Microsoft is coming into this generation with the way that with the mindset that they want to make games available for everybody to play. Game Pass already is showing it. It has the value. This year already, it's provided over $300 worth of games for its users. So if you paid your $180 or whatever you paid for Game Pass, if you got a discount or whatever, your money has been doubled by 2x or even in some cases 400x. You've gotten your money's worth and you're enjoying the service. Even if you're not playing everything, you got more than your money's worth, if you understand what I mean. Now, in addition to that, they're still going to go for their OG making games and providing them to, their gamers. Some people bury their heads in the sand and act like Hellblade is not getting a sequel. Some people bury their heads in the sand and act like there's not an Indiana Jones game coming. Some people bury their heads in the sand and act like, Gears of War is not a thing that exists and Microsoft is not going to pursue it. Some people bury their heads in the sand and act like Bethesda does not publish a series of well-liked games like Elder Scrolls, Dishonored. If they wanted to make another one, it will follow and be a hit. People love Dishonored. People are going to play those games, and they're making them. They're in development. They're not going to fall out of the sky and be uncooked like Redfall so that everybody will chew out. Redfall is an unfortunate situation. There's Forza. Some of you say, it's only Forza. Don't play. Goodness. And so when you think about all these things, there is, in the background work going on to both provide these games that Phil has already touted that they're going to provide while still continuing to subvert the market leader in their way. Nintendo should not be factored into this conversation. Somebody was talking to me on Twitter today and they posted a little clip where, the news article said, Nintendo sold, what was that thing that they said? Nintendo sold more Switch copies because of Zelda. Bruh. Zelda is 37 years old. You will sell copies of anything if you bring out a Zelda game because that's an established IP. Sony sold a lot of consoles with Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is also an old school OG character. you will sell consoles if you're able to get Spider-Man on there. That's just the fact and a reality. And I can tell you that even the other exclusives in Sony's pipeline, they still rest on the laurels of those that have the established names. God of War is one of those. If you look at Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon Zero Dawn, you're not going to compare its sales or its, I would say, how do you call it? Its acceptance to that of God of War, which has already been an old school OG game for a while. And yes, it did well in sales, but not everybody really vibed with it. Some people did. And so playing the game of hit or miss means you have to have a good, library of enough of those. Xbox doesn't seem to have a lot of those. And they decided, instead of going this route, why don't we find a different route? So they're doing all of it. It's not as if they've, and some people make it sound like, oh, they've abandoned making these games and they're only going to focus on Game Pass. That's not true. I mean, I can't emphasize how much people know that that's not true, and they make it sound like that. I just can't understand why we're not going to factor in all of the evidence, and we're not going to even show that, okay, this is a multi-layered strategy. Now, the Activision, debacle that's going on right now should tell you that Microsoft has hit a nerve. They want this company. They want what this company has, and they're going to try their best to get it. The CMA decision is just one small aspect, and many people don't necessarily realize. Go back and watch the interview that Destin did with this gentleman who's an expert apparently in the industry. He said, if CMA went ahead and blocked this deal, Microsoft could still go ahead and just make an Activision PLC based on the UK, naming, and say they're going to be the ones that distribute Call of Duty. While if the EU goes ahead and approves it, all that's left is to fight the FTC, which the FTC has already approved even way more closely monopolistic mergers than the Activision Blizzard one. And they can get their way and get this deal going in big regions. China seems to be on board. South Africa has approved it. Brazil's approved it. So this is still going to happen, folks. They're going to fight this thing, and it will continue to give them more press, more publicity. That's what they need right now. It's not a matter of that. And as they continue to, if they don't get it, just the PR will continue to poison the well and reduce the advantages that Sony has, or the stronghold that Sony already had with, Call of Duty and Activision for their platform, of which Sony makes a lot of money from Activision whenever they have Call of Duty launch on their own platforms, which they then use to go make these big exclusives. And then they recycle all of this money within their ecosystem to bring people in with more console purchases. So Microsoft has looked and said, well, we're going to buy one of your golden geese eggs, and then we're going to use it to make more games available, thereby even more subverting Sony's own ideas or Sony's own business strategy. And this is really going to hurt Sony. Like, you guys don't understand. When Jim Ryan said, oh, that Sony's business is really going to, feel it, he's not lying. Like, and it's not going to need a lot of management. It's just going to need for Microsoft to just have their brand in front of Activision, and then the bank accounts change numbers. So Sony will be writing Microsoft a check every time Call of Duty is basically going to be on their platform in some sense, or at least helping Microsoft to farm money pretty much. With their already big established console base that plays Call of Duty, most of those dollars are going to be given to Microsoft. And then what's Microsoft going to go do? They're not going to go ahead and just only make games. They're going to then make games available to everyone, which would then make people start to look at the proposition in Sony's, in Sony's own ecosystem. Like, what are we here for? So this is not a 1-year execution plan, guys. This is an 8-year fulfillment in this strategy. It's kind of like what Tesla did in 10 to 15 years. Their own strategy started out with them making their cars available to the top end of buyers first, because they wanted to prove their concept. They wanted to make sure that they, had people that would at least purchase their cars and put it on the road, and then have people see how their cars performed. And then you get individual, responses and individual reviews and people talking about their brands. Then they could start to make the case to other kinds of, consumers. So that's what they did. They knew that the consumer was not going to be able to buy their $100,000 Roadster. Many people weren't going to be able to do that. And they wanted to launch a $30,000 one, but they needed a reason to let you think, okay, why do I have to abandon my Toyota? Why do I have to abandon my, my Mercedes-Benz or my BMW? But when their strategy finally clicked after over a decade, They're now the top car manufacturing brand, or one of the top car manufacturing, companies in the world. So you got to look at the big picture. You got to look at the end game. If you can't wait and you think, oh, it's just way too far, then buy a PlayStation or get a PC and you'll get all these games anyways. But no one is saying to wait anyways, but I'm just saying that this is the business strategy. This is the business plan. This is a long-term goal. And again, like I usually say, if Microsoft does not buy Activision, they're going to buy something. And it's going to be really big and shiny. And they're going to put it on Game Pass and make it available to gamers everywhere. Remember that strategy. Available to gamers everywhere. Available to gamers. It's different from exclusive. They're not interested now in trying to sell more consoles. Doesn't make any sense. It does make sense, however, to meet console players exactly where they are, to meet players anyways exactly where they are. So all the iPads in the world become de facto possible Xboxes. All the phones out there in the world become de facto Xboxes. All the, computers out there in the world become de facto Xboxes. So they don't have to worry about the production of these consoles in mass amounts. They just have to worry about how they're going to be strategizing games to be available. Both the ones that they're making within their studios and the ones that they're doing partnerships with are the ones that just outright buying. This is Microsoft's strategy. If it doesn't make any sense to you, I guess maybe I did a poor job explaining it, or maybe you got it and you just don't like it, and it's okay to not like it, but again, corporations are just doing what they're doing to be able to make money, and Microsoft's strategy is a very strong one. It's not going to win, or destroy Sony. It will make a dent in their market share, but it's not going to do that. And that's why Sony was whining and crying, because they know the potential of it. They know that's why the CMA cited cloud gaming, because the CMA only knows the potential, even though Microsoft, right now doesn't have that share in the market yet, but they will have that share in the market. They will have a strong share in the market, because Game Pass is a threat to the traditional gaming industry. Even Nintendo better watch out. All of this stuff people are talking about, Nintendo and all that, Game Pass is so subversive, but nobody would say anything about Game Pass coming, or being a threat to Nintendo. But wait till some more Japanese developers tap into Game Pass. If you notice, Capcom's kind of already on board. Talk to you all in another video. I hope we're going to be thinking through these things and just understanding them from a much broader perspective. People on the internet can be very overreactionary, and I try to tell people in my videos, don't just jump into the reactionary. Kind of think about the big picture, and I think you might just get a sense as to what's happening. Peace out.